We're in the Campbell River area and harvesting the Devil's Club. So we do this for medicine. And so in the process of doing it, we start acknowledging the territory that we're on, and we give thanks to the Creator, to Mother Earth, for providing the medicine, and then we go to work on harvesting it.
I'm Callan Wanick. My grandmother is Jean. You're not gonna, when it's a very fine prickle, you're not gonna want to do it without gloves, because the prickles are so fine that when they go into your hand or fingers, they will break off and be stuck in your finger for a long time. It's quite hard to get them out. When you're going to take the medicine, you're going to chop the top off and put it into the ground it's like a seed. After you've done that, you're gonna want to take off the other leaves that are around the stick. After you've done that, you're gonna go down lower to as far as you can go and chop it down there. And afterwards, you're gonna take the tiny little prickles off the middle. After you've done that, the part that you're gonna want to keep is the skin. Once you get to the white part, then the white part doesn't. The white part isn't the medicine; it's just the green part and the bark. After you've done that, then you have a piece of wood that you could use for beads or whatever else you really want to use for it. Some of these plants don't grow that tall. They only grow about 5 feet, and they'll stop growing and they'll start to die. You can tell by the leaves right on this plant. It's starting to die. Some don't grow as high as most plants. Like there's a 5-foot one. There'll be some that are 6, and then you'll get the really, really tiny ones that are about this big, and they'll start to die as well. This one's a quite tall one. It's around 8 feet, I'd say, and you could get a lot of medicine out of this one. After you're done taking off the bark of this one, you're going to put it inside of a pot and with some water and boil it, and you get the medicine after that. Taking off top of the medicine, you just want to chop. You want to go up as high as you can and chop it off, and you'd want to put it down on the ground as close as possible so it can grow another one. It's basically like a seed. So when you're getting the stick, you're going to want to take it from the very, very bottom, really as low as possible, so you can take the branches off and then clean off the prickles. But you really don't want to touch this part with bare hands. It will sting a lot more than any other prickle.
The medicine in the bucket here is what we'll be using for making Devil's Club salve, which is used largely for pain medicine. I was battling cancer in the early 2000s, and Devil's Club was one of the main medicines that helped me to get through cancer and stay away from it. So instead of getting mind-boggled with all the different medicines out there, I focused on Devil's Club because to me that is the queen of the medicines that we have.
About the video that you just seen on Devil's Club medicine that we harvest, and what's important about it is the knowledge that was passed down from grandparent to child, and also the meaning that the plant has for us and what it helps us with. Virtually there's all different kinds of medicines out there that will help different reasons. This one is very powerful because you can use it for many things, cancer being one of them. And so when harvesting this stuff, it is so important to our people, but just as important as the medicine, so is the knowledge.
Wierten is Joanne en te Galsimo tenits nuts Nanaimo en te tamana sa sekalaki klimtinaat Hachelig zette so Joanne Hachwasisita Gonitimchen. My traditional name is Galsimo and I am the child of Sasekalak and Klimtinaat. I was born here in 1948 and grew up in a house of 8 children with my mom and dad, and I think that at the time I really didn't realize that we were a suppressed people, as all innocent people are born into. But I think one of my fondest memories, I guess, is my dad was a commercial fisherman, and we used to travel to Rivers Inlet every year. Dad would always take the whole family up there. One of his memories was going with my family traveling to Rivers Inlet on a gillnet boat, and my dad would always take the whole family up there. Unbeknownst to me at the time is that both my parents had gone to residential school, so it was good for me to understand that later in life, because I eventually did go to residential school, and I don't mind talking about my own abuses there, but I was sent there because I didn't fit into the Honitim schools. And I was sent there because I refused to go to their schools. And I didn't last there too long, but I was severely abused there and eventually ran away. And but what I do remember about my childhood here, one of my fondest memories is not a block away from where we're sitting here. I remember sitting on this very beach, and an elder by the name of Mossy Wilson was rowing in on a dugout canoe, and in that canoe he had a canoe full of the red sea urchins, and I remember the community gathering and just having a feast on the beach. Unbeknownst to me at the time, that history was starting to dissipate as we were getting away from our traditional foods at the time. And one of the other things that I remember about my childhood later on is that our community was involved in competitive canoe racing, and our boys were being very competitive at that time. And I remember traveling with that entourage all the time, and it was one of my most other famous or fondest memories of growing up here. But I eventually, the other thing that I remember is the remnants of big houses in our village, and but there were no more big houses here, and I didn't realize that we, at the time, and because nobody ever talked about it. My parents never talked about going to residential school. They never talked about why the church was there, but later on my mom shared the history that our people were making deals to embrace religion so their children wouldn't go to residential school. And later on, I found out that my father went to a residential school in Kokalitsa in the Fraser Valley. He went there with his brother, and his brother was killed there. And I never found this out until long after my father passed away. But it gave me an understanding about the addiction that followed my family for years, for generations. And my mother, after her father died, went to Port Alberni Residential School, and she spent most of her life there until she was an adult. And those were stories that kind of hit me. And I wish I knew those stories before that. I think it would have been helpful. But they were trying to protect us from that history, I guess, as I did the same thing. Never told my children about the abuses I went through in residential school. And my life consisted of addiction and anger. Many attempts at suicide and all the things that go along with that history of our people. And I just remember at one time I came to almost succeeding on it, and I thought about how selfish of me that I was going to leave all my children behind. And so I began to change my life. Long before that happened, my mother was talking about an inheritance that I had, a cultural inheritance that I had, and that she wanted us to have, but I really didn't feel worthy of it. But I eventually did embrace the cultural end of it, and I did a lot of work in our lawn house with that inheritance. So the culture was actually something that started to give me strength. And because I inherited that, my mother was already teaching me, bringing back the language to my tongue. And through that, I started to heal. But I never ever spoke to the things that happened to me in residential school. And then one year in 1990s, some of my friends were going to court. They're taking a supervisor to court. Some abuses that happened to them in Port Alberni Residential School. And one of my friends sent the RCMP to my house. And I remember being so angry. And I was mad at my friend for sending the RCMP to my house because I didn't want to expose that history. And I went deeper into my addiction for a number of years after that, because it just awakened the pain of that time I did in residential school. But because of my cultural history, I was asked to be a part of some healing circles on Quadra Island in 2008. So I went there to bring culture to the healing circles there. But while I was there were men and women there that were my age that were telling the truth about the things that happened to them in residential school. And I thought, they were so brave to expose this part of their lives. Then one day I started to tell the truth about what happened to me in residential school. And I remember dropping to my knees and just sobbing. And I couldn't stop sobbing for a long, long time. So it was like a big relief to expose that secret. And I thought that I would expose that secret to family members, but it was strangers that I exposed them to. But it began a healing process. For the next 5, 6, 7 years, I took part in these healing circles, hundreds of healing circles. And I would tell that story over and over and over again until it became easier. And I remember going to Hawaii to tell that story with a friend of mine. I thought, we were over it. We're not going to cry anymore. But we got to Hawaii and started telling that story. And we broke down and sobbed again. So you never know how that history is going to affect you. I can talk about it freely now. And if I get emotional about it, I just accept it, because it is a painful part of our history. And that's kind of my life and the effects of residential school for me, I got healthy, and all good things started happening to me when I got healthy. My children started getting healthy, and it was beautiful to watch. And because there were in my path behind me, there were loved ones of mine that were into addiction. Because of the change that I made, everybody around me is making changes. And I just came off my 12th tribal journey, and I bring people on that journey with me, different people every year, and it's always a healing experience. And I worked at the university, and I was pinching myself, thinking about, gee, I'm going to have a guy who never got out of elementary school working at a university, and I think, holy cow, how did I get here? But I remember when I was being taught the medicine in our house, and I remember the elder telling me, you're going to be looked after. And I never knew what he meant. But since the change of my life, it seems to be that way. Good things just fall in my path. Good people fall in my path. And I get to interact with people like my grandnephew here and see them and be somebody that they can talk to share that history with, because we're still going through it, the effects of that. I'm well grounded now. I still have days where I hang on to myself because it'll come forward, and I get afraid that I'm going to go back into my addictions and the behaviors that come with those. But I understand the power of talk, the medicine of talk, and I reach out to my wife or to a friend and just talk. So I've discovered how much medicine there is in love and in friendship.
Siap nasokoram, siap nasiat and pet and serious Nanaimo. I learned it at a Hokumino class in Woodbank School. I came with my cat, and I've been in it for 2 years. I'm in like a UC, and then some of the kids started going, so that's when I started going. And
it's important that we keep our language and pass it on to our children and our children's children, because language and culture walk hand in hand. If we lose our language, we lose our culture. If we lose our culture, we lose our language. They walk hand in hand. If we lose both of our language and our culture, we lose our identity as First Nation people. That's our main strong point of being Qualumuch Mustimach is our language and our culture. So it's important that we make sure our children learn our language or learn their culture, so that we won't lose our identity as First Nation people. They were sent to residential schools. Our elders no longer spoke the language. Now it's our job to wake the language up by speaking it, so that our elders can hear it again. In order for them to start speaking Hokumino, is that for them to hear it again. So residential school is a big part of our elders not speaking language anymore, and we want them to hear it again through their children or their grandchildren, and by learning it in our community or in our schools.
I regret not learning the language. Yes, I regret not learning the language because I'm not able to understand a lot of it. I can only understand minimal amounts, and because I would like to, like, for my children to know it. And as a kid growing up, like my parents or my grandma didn't really speak much of it because of residential school. So we didn't have that chance of learning it from her, because when my grandmother went to residential school, she was told that she wasn't allowed to speak our language anymore. And so when she came home from residential school, she didn't speak it because a lot of things were made that way in residential school. And I really wish that I had opportunity to know our language.
To me, when I'm gone, your generation, you, Talia, the old people older than me, the elder, if you guys don't learn it and we don't learn it and we don't share with the little ones and they don't learn it, then our language will be wiped out again.
seaward. My traditional name is Tohnusted. I'm from Nanaimo, here in Nanaimo. Canoeing to me is a way of life, and it's a tradition that our people have handed down and done for years, and it also keeps you, your mind and your spirit grounded, and to me it's for my kids and my nieces and my nephews for me to keep them safe. That's what canoeing means to me. It takes a lot of commitment and hard work on and off the water. You get your diet. You should be having no fast foods, no fried foods, no greasy foods. My grandfather always said that you want to be somewhere and somebody. A true champ would be somebody that's going to run and work hard every day, go swim every day to cleanse your body and your spirit, and also to live off the land. Traditional foods, meaning you're going to have deer, elk, fish, clams, oysters, and all of these different foods that our ancestors have survived on for generations, and it was never fried. It was always like boiled or steamed and poached.
My name is Gary Smith, and I'm from Nanaimo First Nation. When I first started paddling, it was back in 1991 when I started paddling. There's been a lot of changes since then on the mainland, in the Chilliwack area, and here on Vancouver Island have expanded their equipment that they use to train, and then those are the canoes. Some of them use the outriggers, and they have a dog leg, a bent paddle, that is more common today in the racing circuit, whereas it wasn't common back when I first started paddling. It was just the traditional straight blade paddle. Training has really amped up with all the crews. That's another thing that has changed. Back when I paddled, we did a lot of water, a lot of training on the water, as well as running. We didn't go to the gym very much. In my grandparents' time, they never did that. They just basically used what they had, which was the road and for running and on the water. Other things that have changed is they've opened the doors for younger paddlers to race. They have 7 and under races, 13 and under, 15 and under. Back when I first started, there was only one race for buckskins, and that was 16 and under. They never had little kid races, so I think that's a good thing because it's pulling more people back into the sport, because the sport was dying. But today, to this date, there are more crews again, so that's a good thing. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the doors being open for the younger kids to participate and race. Yeah, there's been so much change, and a lot of it I think is good change. The people have shifted their way of how they train, and it shows out on the water while they're racing.
From Nanaimo First Nation. Growing up paddling, I would have to say, was one of the easiest things. Having my late grandma, Mavis Wise, by my side. And she just slapped me on a canoe one day and said, "You're a paddler." I started paddling with my Uncle Jamie, seaward, and I got to see Grandma Mavis, as old as she was, still run, and me being the cheeky little one, I said, "Grandma, I'm walking as fast as you." And she said, "That's okay, I'm still going." And those words just play in my head. I'm okay. Keep going. No matter how sore, how tired I am. It was passed down from late Papa Bill, seaward, down to Grandma Mavis, now down to Dad, now us. And I can't wait to pass it down to my kids. Kai's already been eager to jump on the canoe. He comes out with his dad and fills in our extra seats for Women's 11 when we train. And I can't wait to teach her and let her sit in the bow, just like Mummy and Auntie.